trust me, people, folks will show up and we won't have time. So looking forward to get going. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Well, and so I do want to hear about your podcast. So, but this is a question about the podcast.
Oh, okay.
So here's the deal. The Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction had a low audience uptick, and so all of these are recorded. You can see them or listen to them on YouTube. And so we have just, because there's an expense for everything like. It wasn't just that they magically went up, on the podcast. That was all production costs and things like that. So Dr. Rob's Sex, Love, and Addiction podcast, which you can find on our website, but it's on, Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on all of the, all of the podcasts, has had, and I haven't looked lately. So it was over 1.3 million downloads versus Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction, which we will probably add to again. But we've just found that, people were really seeing them on YouTube, which is why we record them so they could view them or listen to them. You can just listen to the audio. So I would invite you to check that out. But Dr. Rob just recorded a new one on sex, love, and addiction. So tell me about that.
Well, first, let me tell you, I was looking at our numbers on YouTube, and we I think of it last week's show, about 850 people listened to us. So not a huge amount of people, but gosh, what a gift for us to be able to help that many people in just a short period of time.
Well, but that's just one,
No, I'm not saying good or bad. I'm saying
no. But I'm like we have, on our email we posted about the why just saying sorry isn't enough, and that so we have different webinar hosts and different topics. So this week on Wednesday, Scott and I are going to talk about 12 steps. Like, how do you discern what 12 step is a good fit? How do you even begin this whole process? So we're going to really unpack that, and answer questions about that topic. But that one I know will be really useful for people, and they'll find it. So we try to have, a variety of different webinars with different topics, on our previously recorded webinar series, which includes your live Q&A as well. So,
and I did a wonderful concert with a man by the name of Jason Van Ruler, and Jason is a therapist. He's a CSAT, and he, God, what a great, sometimes I look at a young person, in his 30s, got a couple of young kids, and I think, I remember being so excited about the field, and not that I'm not now, but that kind of youthful. Well, there's this idea and there's that idea, and I could see that spiritual ideas and recovery ideas, just really exciting. Great guy to talk to. He does intensives, he does trainings, he does a lot of helping people. I just really was impressed. And he's writing about putting the past in the past, which I think is a pretty good topic.
And that's a new book for him, and that was what. So I'm kind of behind the scenes, and I help coordinate those, and so I kind of screen what's going to be on, and I know Jason.
You picked that one, didn't you?
I did pick that one, yeah. So
we should get more involved with him. What a great guy. Good.
Yes, I think yes, and I think he's solid, and I'm always looking for solid practitioners who can really help in a meaningful way. So,
and he also teaches at Bethesda in Tennessee. I don't know if you knew that. Of course you did. You know everything. Tammy knows everything.
Well, I don't know. No. So somebody asked, what kind of questions would I ask? And I'm like, what would you like, Dr. Rob? So here's a little bit of why Jason, who's younger than you, is more excited, because you've already done, you've written a dozen books, and, he's written one, you have taught at the level, for the training for CSAT, I mean, like, you've done a lot. So you're still creative. You came up with this entire platform. So I'm giving you the,
but the fresh flow of youth, you just
I understand.
Repeat that.
Somebody was asking, what should I ask? And it's like, these are general questions. They're not specific, because, this is not therapy or treatment for you. So any question that is asked, and it's usually a sentence or two, we're just looking for little snippets, not, a long, verbiage, and we'll do our best to answer them. And if they're useful for you, fantastic. And they can also be helpful for many others as well.
And just an example, if you're a betrayed partner, you might ask something like, what do I know? How do I know this person's in recovery? And, I'm not sure he's doing the things or she's doing the things they said. And I don't know what to say to the kids. Might all kinds of family and personal relationship issues for spouses. How do I deal with betrayal? And for addicts, it may be, I keep trying, but I'm just not getting there, or I'm not sure how to be more apologetic to the person that I harmed, or, questions that are where the heck is this all about? Like Tammy said, listen to that webinar she's doing with Jason, by the way, about the steps. That will be a wonderful way to learn. But anyway, you can ask pretty much anything you're curious about not related to this,
Yes.
who the heck are
So
you guys? We'll tell you.
So we have one that's a two-parter. So I'm a porn
Sure,
addict,
great.
672 days in a row of meeting, step work, calls every day, podcasts, and I've organized SAA events. I'm currently transitioning back into our house, but a post-disclosure separation was very hard, and I did relapse with porn substitutes. And when I told her, it tore her up. Months later, it came out that it stopped being a therapeutic separation at that point and was a trial separation. I found out months later that she stopped wearing her wedding ring 6 months ago. Recently, I asked her if she wanted to go to Mexico with me, and she said no because she's going with her daughter to visit her ex-husband's family. This had never been an issue for me when I knew where I stood, but now I don't, and I don't know what else I don't know. There is so much she doesn't share with me. I know she would never cheat, but I'm questioning my reality and it's not healthy for me. It's hard to talk about because it can upset her. How should I handle this? Thank you for sharing. That's like that. I feel the uncertainty and challenges. So Dr. Rob, what do you think?
Well, first of all, congratulations for going to almost 2 years
Yeah.
of support groups and 12-step meetings. And I really think that regardless of the status of your marriage, and I hope that you can take this in, that you're going to be someone that you feel good looking in the mirror at. You have a relationship with your children that will be different. I don't know what your relationship or future will bring, but you're growing in a way that's going to help all of that. A couple of things I have to it's interesting. Jason and I talked about this in the podcast day too. One of the first steps to healing is really looking at reality clearly and seeing things that you haven't quite wanted to see clearly, more clearly. So this is just a little teeny piece of that, but there is nothing that I've ever run into called a porn substitute. There are no porn substitutes. You're either looking at porn or you're not. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be Instagram, it could be a movie, it could be, but if you're kind of waiting for that bathing suit scene and everybody, if you're kind of getting off on it, then it's your porn. And it might not turn me on, but it turns you on. So if you're acting out over it by masturbation or intense focus on it and sexualizing it and wanting to keep it from a spouse, or yeah, it's called porn. There is nothing. Let me be really, there are sugar substitutes, but Tammy, I'll tell you, they're not really anything like sugar. And porn substitutes are just porn, but it's a very nice word. And I go after that in particular because we lie to ourselves. We say, well, it really wasn't really that. It was just this. Well, let me tell you, your spouse does not look at it like that. She looks at it as porn. So the other thing is, I guess, sort of the therapist in me, and I wants to say to you that now you know how she feels. Now you know how she's been feeling. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure where I am. I don't think he's cheating, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, this is how your spouse, or at least many of the spouses we work with, have felt forever. So, congratulations, you've earned your way to the other side. Now you know what it feels like to doubt your relationship, to not go, it's going to go forward. If your spouse might have something going on that they're not telling you about, if they're not going to stay in the relationship, now you get to feel all of that uncertainty. And I think it is good for the addicts to turn around and say, oh, that's how I left them feeling. That doesn't tell you how to proceed, but it's a good way to think about how the partners feel is how you're feeling right now. Um, so I don't understand the nature of your situation, but I will say that I heard this thing about I don't want to hurt her or talk to her about it. Where was it?
It's
It's
the
not
very end.
healthy for
It's
me to.
hard to talk about it because it can upset her.
Right. Well, I don't think that matters. I mean, what matters is you are in a life, hopefully living life recovery, and you, like any other human being, have the right to know where your life is going. And again, I will say that's what we deny the spouses all the time, is the right to know where their lives are going. But nonetheless, you get to stand up and say, gee, I don't think you get to assign, I think you're doing that or worried you're going to do that. It's none of your business. And if she is dating and falling in love with other people, that's what she's chosen to do. You can't talk about her, but you can talk about you. I'm worried that we're not moving forward. Is that the truth? Is there an avenue for us to move forward, like therapy or not? Are you motivated to want to? Do you find yourself slipping away more? Was it my last slip? If you don't feel comfortable saying it, write it down. Write her a note. Here are a few things I want to ask you. Might be uncomfortable one-on-one. If we can go through this, it'd be really helpful. Or just type me answers. That isn't trite. Sometimes people feel a little bit safer if they have that distance. But, and I know what Tammy will say, but I don't think there's anything wrong. It does bother me that this is another, excuse me. You weren't worried about upsetting her when you were acting out, but now that you want to ask her about the quality and future of your relationship, you're nervous. I think that's a good way to look at being an addict. So now you've all of a sudden you understand how much you have to lose and you may be losing it and you're afraid. Good. That's where you should be. The question is, what's going on? And you have a right to say, I don't know. And I really need to know, not because of my recovery, but because of me as a person. And I do think that any partner certainly owes us the responsibility to say, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going, and this is what I'm thinking. And it's one thing to say, I want to be separated for a year, or this is, I've seen a lawyer, or I do think that you both to protect yourself emotionally on every level have a right to say, tell me what's going on. And then she tells you or she doesn't. Um, anyway, Tammy, that's all I can pull out of that. What you got?
Oh, I agree with what you're saying. And here's what I was looking at is like, there was no notice to you that it was a trial separation. But what I really don't hear is what was the plan? Like, I hear
Mm,
often, unfortunately, we're separated, and it's often in the midst of chaos and pain and everything else. But if there's no plan for how, what is she looking for you to do, what actions in order for you to be safe to move back into the house? What is it? You've been doing your work. That's fantastic. But if there's no plan, then you're just separated. If there's a plan of this is, we're going to take a cooling off period, that's a long time though. Usually those are, a few months, and then there's like, and we're going to reevaluate after, 60 or 90 days, we're going to see where we're at and what do we need, and how can we move this forward. So I do think, and like Dr. Rob said, I don't want to upset her. She may be upset, but it may also be, I mean, addicts do this a lot too. It's like we get upset and angry and it pushes everybody away. And if this is an uncomfortable thing for her to talk about, then, she may react, and that's okay. You will survive that and you don't have to go act out. But if you're going to have a difficult conversation, have it set up. I need to, I'd like to talk to you about this. Can we have can we set a time that would be convenient so that we can have this conversation? Bookend it. Scott talks all the time about bookending. Contact your sponsor before, contact your sponsor after. So you're taking care of you and your recovery, because this could be uncomfortable and everything. But I'm, like, this is the limbo land and partners are often in it. This is the unknown. And I personally hate being in the in between, and you're really in the in between. And
hmm
and so like having a decision that yes, we're going to work to reconcile, or no, we are in a trial separation and it's moving the other direction. At least you would know, and you can deal with whatever that fact is at that time. And there can be discussion about it. It's like, okay, can we try and reuniting and see, but she is giving you messages of like, no, I don't want to travel and I'm doing all of these things. It's feeling like she's creating a life, but without the courtesy of telling you, what that is. But like Dr. Rob said, she lived in the unknown, for your entire acting out, career too. So stay focused on your recovery, keep doing what you need to do. But I'm gonna suggest that you consider being brave and just know that it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I bet you'll have some more clarity. And if you guys are working with a therapist, this could be a time when say we just need to have this conversation with a professional who can help us navigate that. That would be useful too.
I did want to add a couple of things, Tammy, because I think it's useful
Sure.
for everyone, which is what is a therapeutic separation? I think just to give
Hmm.
you a sense of what that is. So what it means is we call it a cooling off period, where we're living together, things are not going well. We agree that we need some time apart, but it's a therapeutic meaning we're not just taking time apart, we have a plan. And that's what Tammy just said. What is the plan? We're going out to the movies once a week. We are going to dinner once a week. We are going to therapy every other week. We go for walks. We have some experience of getting to know each other again and getting through. And it's also structured, so we're not spending 3 days together like we were, and really planning out and organizing that time with a therapeutic piece in the middle, like seeing a therapist on a regular basis as a couple, because she can't, obviously just starting everything all over again didn't work. So I wonder if there is a path forward other than being separate. And that's what Tammy's talking about. And maybe that's the question for her is, if we're going to move forward, what would that look like for you? I have some ideas of what it might look like for me. Here's one more thought for you. And this is just, I understand, I really do feel your unhappiness and I respect it. And I want to tell you that maybe this isn't about you at all. maybe she's just enjoying her life. Maybe what's going on with you isn't her concern right now. Maybe she doesn't want to go on holiday with you since she's not living with you. I can understand how you would have these thoughts and feelings, but there could be another way to look at it, which is I'm so glad since we're having such a hard time that she's getting away, that she's spending time with her daughter, that she seems to be feeling better. Rather than I would never think this, but I think she's cheating on me and it makes me nervous. And that's all about you. So I suggest you start out with the right attitude, which I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. And it made me wonder, as you start going into that, rocky field of I wonder if, and are you, you'll never come back. So it's an opportunity to practice empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. And take
Okay.
care of yourself. I mean, it's really, this is you taking care of your
Right.
program, regardless of what happens with other people. We still can take care of our program. Okay. I left a 43-year marriage last summer. I've been really struggling and trying to attend support meetings and the Betrayal Healing Conference. He found a new girlfriend after a few weeks and now wants my children and grandchildren to meet her. This is killing me, and I feel like I've been replaced. Any advice on how not to obsess over this?
No, you're going to obsess over this. I mean, there's no way, something died and you're saying, well, could I just ignore that they died and just have a good day? And I'm not ignoring any of the rest of it, but I think for you to not feel like you're being replaced, for you to not be in deep and utter misery and pain and fury and depression because 43 years, So I absolutely tell you that what you need is support. I'm really glad you're here. I think what you need is for people to hold you and love on you and pray on you, whatever works for you, because you need a lot of support. Whatever this man is doing, I guarantee you there's some kind of finger pointing going on. Like, well, you can do this to me, so I'm going to do that to you. I imagine he's getting something out of this, would be my guess. Um, Wanting to show you, wanting to show it off. So, Tammy, I want you to give some suggestions. I want to jump back in there in a second, but um, all I can say to start with is the pain is endless here, and boy, has this person shown no empathy and compassion for you. What are your thoughts, Tammy?
I have lots of them, and first of all, let me start with I hear what you're saying. I put in the chat, so we have the online betrayed partner online work group. I'm sorry, starting February 21st. Angela Spearman does a great job with teaching that course, and it is, even for those that are no longer in the relationship. Here's the deal. You've already said it. You've got kids and grandkids, so you will always co-parent and co-grandparent on some level. That's the extra layer, when it isn't just, there's two of you and you leave. I also put the Empowered Women's retreat. That's an in-person retreat. And I cannot express how healing and amazing that was for the people who participated. And some, everybody's in different situations, and some, were in a comparable, shall we say, to you. I would invite you to consider that. There's a Moving On Alone. I didn't get that one pulled yet, but there's a Moving On Alone drop-in group on Thursdays for betrayed partners, women, who are leaving, have been left, or in the process of leaving. And that's a different focus. That is not how do we repair this relationship. Here's the tricky part. And this is the really hard part, getting support for you. And you can email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and I'll give you some resources. But what I hear often are people who have reacted and done things that they can't retract, that is hurtful to them and relationships with children or grandchildren. So at some point your children are adults and they will choose what they choose. And the more you can not try, I don't know how he and the girlfriend will be received. And that's not, I know you want to know, but it's also really like at some point it's like you have your life, you've got enough on your plate, and how do we help you find, connections? I can help you find a qualified professional. This is grief. We've done some webinars on grief. There's resources. So please reach out to me, email me, and I will help you find stuff. But I wouldn't disregard the feelings, but I would try not to act on anything that
We'll regret later.
Yeah. Take the high
Right.
road with this. Be the person that your kids, can respect with,
Respect, right.
dig and have dignity about. So
I had a couple other things. Thank you, Tammy. We're like
Mhm.
talking in sync here. Um, as far as your children and grandchildren, it's up to them. You know,
Mhm.
it is not a, if it were me and one of them came to me and said, "What do you think I should do? Dad said he's doing this and that," I would say, you know, you really need to make your own decisions. No matter what it is you're feeling, I think they need to have the relationship they're having with their father, whatever that means to them, and your grandchildren. And so, you know, I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's cruel and awful. And if I were your child, I would, no way I would do that. But it is up to them. And I think you have to give them the grace to not take on your angry feelings if that's not how they feel. Um, I will say to you a couple of things I wrote down, which is nobody moves on from a relationship in a week. So I would guess from his perspective that he has probably been gone for a long time. He's not begging, he's not pleading, he's not, you know, trying to get like the last person. How are we going to get it? How are we going to go forward? How are we going to make this work? What's going to happen next? You're not hearing any of that. And so on an emotional level, in my experience as a therapist, at this point, that person has already left and they left long before last summer, my guess. And so what I would be saying to myself is, I left the marriage and now I gave him permission to do this, or now he's doing this to punish me, or you know, you left the marriage to take care of yourself, I hope, you know, and to make peace with yourself, and whatever he chooses to do, as painful as it may be, you did the right thing for you. I will put in this caveat, and I want all you partners to hear it. Many, because I think it's useful, many years ago, when I was still in very early recovery, I had a relationship that was really important to me, but it wasn't going well, and so I we separated. And I thought to myself for months and months and months, you know, I'm going to get a call. And the call is going to be, "I miss you. I'm thinking about you. I can't live without you." Or, "I wish you hadn't left," because I did the leaving. And that call never came. It killed me. When I
Mm.
finally realized that I thought this person needed me and would depend on me and want me. And certainly when I was gone, they would see how much they couldn't make it without me. And the phone never rang. It just killed me. And then I realized that it was the right decision to leave. And so whatever your motivations were, if this is what this person is doing in your life right now, I don't mean to say you're better off without them, but your pain is more short term than long term. You're involved with this person. I can only imagine how much pain, repeat is happening. And especially in this situation, I'm so glad that you took care of yourself. And now you're getting the information that you knew was there all along. He isn't fighting for this relationship. He isn't trying to make it work. He's moved on. By the way, I will say 43 years, Tammy, if you've been married 43 years, you're probably somewhere around my age or older. And what I say to the men who are in their 60s and 70s is, who's going to wipe your butt in 10 years? You know, who's going to help you with your cane? Who's going to help you get to the doctors? And do you think it's your new girlfriend who's going to go do that? So I think, and the men look at me like, well, of course they say, well, I'm not old, because they've been dating, you know, 30-year-olds and hiring 30-year-olds. So there will come a time when this man will look at himself in the mirror and say, what did I do? Because every man I've ever worked with at some point said in some way, I probably could have made that first relationship work if it was as long as this. And to walk away, to walk away from you completely, even though you've taken the time. Anyway, he's showing you his colors, and you're going to have to find a life that is not the one you had wanted. And I am so sorry for that. But you just got the call, which you just got the call. Sorry, how do I say this? You just got what I never got. Am I saying that right? You and I have had the same experience, which is you were waiting, hoping something good would happen, and it never did. And that was the thing that shoved me into grief, was that this is just what it is. And so I'm so sorry. I wonder how you're going to filter your conversations with him so you don't have to hear about the girlfriend. Um, yeah, there's so much to say. I want to put my arms around you and give you a big hug, and I'm just so sorry. I have names for him other than asshole. I think I said it. I meant to say
I think
addict.
you
I
said
really
it.
did.
It's okay.
But I have other names for him. But anyway, it is what it is. Let's you want to go on,
But
Tammy? That makes me
please,
sad, that one.
please, you know, consider the Empowered Women's Retreat. You know, it was amazing and healing, and you deserve amazing and healing. So, okay, I am an SA 1 year into recovery, CSAT therapist, and 3 to 4 12-step meetings a week. Partner experiencing PTSD and is triggered by my presence and cannot tolerate touch of any kind. No holding hands, no hugs, no, of course, no sex. Understand I need her to feel safe first and foremost, but wondering when I can connect again without triggering her. Thank you.
Well, first of all, you are connecting with her because you're with her and you're spending time together. And so I think you mean physical connection, but I want to say, you know, this is someone who might not want to be around you at all. And so, there's so many answers to this. I mean, just to the group, what I believe he's talking about, or I was a therapist would imagine here, is that his partner has had trauma in the past or abuse in the past or some violations in the past. And she realized, or he realized, I think, or sorry, she experienced the trauma of what you guys went through, and that has re-triggered things from her past. And so she can't be near you, she can't be around you, she can't touch you because it brings up all of her fear and pain and violation, whatever she went through on the past. So I want to go to what you said, which is I need her to feel safe first and foremost. Great. That's what I would respect. All she needs to know is that if and when she is ready, you are there. And you are there in any way, your door is open. You'll see her for 10 minutes, you'll see her for an hour, you'll go for a walk, that you have no agenda about a timeline or a way. The last thing this woman needs, especially with this kind of history, is to feel pressured. She needs to feel complete control over when she brings you in and when she pushes you out, something she couldn't do in her abuse. So trust me, if she wants to work it out with you and make it work, it will be on her schedule when she is at peace with her own demons, which is sound like what's going on that you now represent. So the bottom line is be there. I'm available. I miss you. This is difficult, but I want you to feel completely safe as much as you can. And whenever and whatever you want, I am here. I don't think you can do anything other than that. But Tammy, do you have other thoughts? You're a good
Well, I
thinker.
wish and it's tough because like Dr. Rob said, you can't really say you should go listen to these podcasts or what. I mean, like it really is on her terms because I have so many resources and I'm thinking, oh man, some trauma work. And I know lots of really good people that could help her, with the somatic trauma work. And um, but I
And
don't,
we don't know that she's not working on it, by the way. She may
I
well
don't, I
be
don't
working
hear
on
that. So you're right. I
it.
didn't hear that, but I was like, you know, if there's ever an opportunity and she is open to getting support, and that's what it is. This is not, you need therapy. This is like, gosh, you're, I know it hurts. And, if you're open to, I'm willing to help you find resources if that would be useful. I mean, if there's something like that, and then email me. But yeah, I mean, I do know lots of really good people that could help with that PTSD, or as is often the case, the chronic PTSD. So, okay.
Um, I wanted to say something to the person who was on last, who left someone and then they went off with the girlfriend and all that,
Oh yeah.
because I was reminded how painful. I really want you to, sorry, I hope you're still here. I really want you to keep asking yourself, why did I leave? Why
Oh,
did I
good.
leave?
Yeah.
Because those experiences have not changed. Who someone is who they are, and you probably left for a reason, and that hasn't changed. In fact, you're seeing that it's not much different, and that probably was the right thing to do. So keep in mind why you made that decision in the first place. Rather, you're going to feel all this remorse. Um, there was something else I wanted to write down about this. Oh, I know, Tammy. I don't think you mentioned today. You mentioned the spouses separation divorce may not go forward group, but there's also one for men, and they may be a really good place for you to go. And these are free. It's just there's a man who has this experience, who's a therapist who moderates this group, and actually our alumni asked for this. We have big alumni meetings. Gosh, we must have 65 men who've been through the program. That's one day a week, but they come and they hang out and they engage and they ask questions. And this is one of the things they've been asking for is, well, I don't know if we're going to stay together. Where do I go? Or we just got divorced. So Tammy has put together, thank you, Tammy, a place for that to happen. And that's a good place for these questions and for you to bring them.
And that is, as Dr. Rob said, both the moving on alone for women on Thursdays and for men on Fridays are, you could just be thinking of this. This could be like, it appears things could be like this isn't, we've left or, have been left and it's all done. It's like, it can be in process. It can be, in negotiation, but how do you process those feelings? So yeah, Friday mornings is the men's group. So, okay. Next question. Okay. I am compulsive about unporn, so like non-porn porn. It sounds like TikTok, Instagram, etc., and sexual fantasy life based on long past affairs. I'm in sex addiction therapy, a workshop and local 12-step SAA. I intend to break this compulsion. My question: how will I be able to function, get an erection without my fantasy life?
Well, I guess you won't know until you give it up. it's sort of like saying, will I really lose weight? How do I know I'm going to lose weight if I stop eating all these candies, cookies, and cake? I guess you'll find out when you stop eating. So I don't think you're going to know the answer to that question. And, the thing is, if it's a physical issue, you can go see a physician and deal with that. If it is a psychological issue, let me put it this way. I'm going to say something that I say to the addicts. And Tammy, I'd love you to take on this question as well, which is um, addicts look at porn, sex addicts and porn addicts. We look at those images or those people that we're acting out with, and we think that's how you get aroused. That's what excitement is. It's this immediate, oh my God, I saw that. That's so amazing. That's so hot. I want to get off on that. I want to see that. I want to see more of that. And it's all sort of stimulation intensity driven. That's what stimulates us when we are acting out. And it's a pretty easy way to get aroused if you're looking at all those images and all that stuff and all of that flying by you, etc. The difficult part is being emotionally engaged with someone and being sexual. That's the hard part. People think it's hard to stop acting out. That is very hard, but the harder part, as every spouse knows, is how do we become emotionally intimate and physically intimate with you? And so my question to you would be, do you think you might think about how, first of all, getting erections may not be the point of all this at the moment? You can worry about that later. And second of all, if you want to develop some kind of relationship with someone, or you want to develop some kind of sexuality that is healthy, and I say this to all the addicts, then you're going to have to give up the idea that sex is about horniness. I'm going to be really horny and really excited. Sex with partners is about willingness. Am I willing to stroke your hair? Am I willing to hold each other? Am I willing to look in your eyes? Am I willing to touch you? It's a whole different experience. So my long answer to your question is what your expectations are after all this experience of using porn. What your expectations are about what's going to turn you on are not going to be what they were. And what they're going to be, I don't know. You're going to have to explore in a healthy way, once you put this away, what healthy sexuality is for you, and your body will tell you. But if you keep turning to this intensity based stimulation, you're never going to figure out what arouses you without addiction. Tammy, can you just say something about I intend to break this compulsion? Because I just have a
Yeah, I kind
feeling.
of laughed at that one. Yeah, I intend to do that. Oh, did I just knock my I just bumped my, can
We
you
can
hear
hear you.
me? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you look fabulous.
I no, I'm messed with my AirPod and I was worried I knocked it off. But yeah, I, addicts have lots of intentions, and as has been said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, and that's just a little trite, saying, but it's like it isn't about what our intentions are; it's about what our actions are. And so, if you are permitting yourself to wander into the fantasy and the non-porn and all of that, if you are not, you know, and you say, I go to local 12-step meetings. Are you doing 90 meetings in 90 days? I just was talking to somebody earlier today and it said do 180, like be an overachiever. If you're struggling with stuff, and I think it's more difficult because you can have that instant replay and no one will know. So you learning to be accountable about that and going, wait, this is not who I want to be. But I also, yeah, like it's also the future tripping. How will I ever get an erection if I give this all up?
Right,
You don't know.
right,
You don't know. You've never tried it, or you haven't tried it in years or decades. So but wow, and unfortunately, sex and porn addicts perceive that that's the only thing. It's like that's the, and it's not.
right,
It's about connection. It's gotten it's nice, but it's about connection. This is, we're missing the point if we're so focused
right.
on, on the high, and so I would invite you to really, really, dig in. If you're not working with a qualified professional, please do so. Email me if you would like, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, and I'll help you find somebody. I don't know how many 12-step meetings you're going to. Here's what you also didn't say is, and I'm on step whatever, like, again, if you're stuck on steps 1, 2, or 3 and you're not making progress on them, nothing's going to change. Steps 4 through 9, and Scott and I are going to talk about all this on Wednesday in far more detail, but on our webinar at 9:30 on Wednesday morning Pacific time. But it is about what are you doing that will make things different. But what I really hear is I'm afraid. So but in the 12-step books, we talk about half measures availed us nothing. And so if you want things to be different, You have to be willing to let go of, if you're working with the 12 steps and you're doing the work, then you know what a 3 circle plan is. And I say this all the time to addicts. The inner circle is the smallest circle. It is the most meaningless stuff because we're hanging on to that. And it's just intensity. Dr. Rob says this all the time. It's intensity, not intimacy. It's not connection. And so you're chasing this intensity and hoping that, but you're not connected in a real and meaningful way, and you're compartmentalized and everything else. So you miss out because you're focused on this inner circle stuff. I got to hang on to this, and you're missing out on all the great stuff in life and all the real people that want to be, connected to you. So I would invite you to quit focusing on your erection, all due respect, and
Thank you,
to focus
Tammy.
on, I'm going to say that. I'm just going to be blunt, quit worrying about that and worry
Right.
about what's going on in your brain, and how do you shift and change your actions.
Tammy, this reminds me of the alcoholic who says, well, I'd like to stop drinking, but I won't have any fun anymore if I stop
Yeah.
drinking. And how will I still have fun if I drink? And this reminds me of that because, well, first of all, why are you so focused on erections? Like you have your whole life to explore about who you are and how you feel about yourself. And the question you're asking is, to me, pure sex addict. It's like, well, I'm going to stop this kind of sex. How will I know if I can enjoy that kind of sex? Well, how about I stop all this and I decide to become a good person? I work on myself. I build relationships. I help other people. Maybe the erection part isn't really what's important. In fact, you've probably had enough erections for 2 or 3 lifetimes at this point. So why don't you, excuse the language, put it down, sorry, and start focusing on what life is about and what you've been avoiding by doing all of this. Because who am I and who can I be and what kind of meaning can I have in my life is what I would be looking at rather than how am I going to still get an erection. Um, and Tammy, what do they say to the people who, oh, I'm never going to have fun if I stop drinking? Because they show them how to have fun without drinking, right?
My therapist in treatment said, she flat out told me, she was scary, like she was scary. And I remember she had steely gray eyes and she looked at me and she said, you will not make it unless you figure out how to have fun in recovery. And guess what? I have had more fun, and like I'm intentional. I'm in the moment. I can be with people. It's absolutely an opportunity. Like I don't miss out on stuff because I'm focused on how am I gonna, or I've got this image going on in my head. Like I'm connected in a real and meaningful way. Recovery is fun, and connected and good. Like I all of the good stuff in my life is a direct result of my recovery. I am very passionate about recovery. I'm not even going to apologize for it. It has given me everything. I am incredibly grateful. And anybody who's hanging on to their addiction is missing out and hurting their loved ones too. Okay.
Well, I appreciate your passion, Tammy, because this person's looking in the wrong direction, and you're
Yep.
absolutely right.
Okay.
Good question.
Yes. My husband is doing out of the doghouse work group. Should he continue to do part 2 or do the 12 steps first? Okay. I've got,
Well, read the
I'm going to
rest.
keep reading. Yes, we are doing couples counseling and individual counseling. Just curious about the 12 steps. He starts his counseling this week, just started couples counseling 6 weeks ago. So we are just starting out for financial reasons. He's a porn addict, not using 9 months. He tells me, good catch on you. Yes. Okay. So do you want to start or you want me to clarify
Well,
or?
I don't want to answer the question. I think that you are better, really better at answering the first part of the question, but I
Yes.
just wanted to speak to the second one, which
Yes,
is
please. Cause I was like,
um
yeah, go please. So start with
so
there and then I'll go back to the top.
well, I really hear that finances have been a challenge, and so therefore, couples and the therapy stuff has come later, and I understand that. I guess one of the things I want to say, which you didn't ask about, so there are different things. There's the 12 steps, which is we are meetings, and they're like AA that we go to on a regular basis, and you can start on, the first day you get into recovery, you can start going to meetings. It has nothing to do with other things. It's free. You get support, you build relationships. I think the 12-step meetings are kind of like listening to someone who's a little further ahead than me and saying, oh, how did they get there? And then getting to know them and building healthy relationships like that. So it is a whole different process. I don't think you can say, well, do this first and do that first. I think Tammy would agree. Why would you wait to get into those meetings? Just start. So the other thing that yeah, I agree. You don't know what he's telling you and what he's not. And I take that he tells me very seriously that you don't have any trust yet, and you shouldn't. I do question the couples counseling because I know as an addict who is in early recovery, let me say it this way. I talk to couples, I do a 2 hour, let me back up. I'm talking
I
fast.
know, I'm with you.
I do a 2 hour couples consultation online. And I do these with couples who are really struggling about how to move forward and what to do and all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I hear constantly is from these couples who are really trying to figure out their next steps, which usually involves the addict trying to get a clue about how bad things have been. Um, I hear things like, and I'll hear this from a spouse. I asked him, heterosexual partner, I asked him to go to couples therapy because we were in a disaster and he went for a year and a half and we didn't get anywhere. Why didn't you get anywhere? Because he was lying. And this is so difficult for spouses. Like, we went to counseling, we spent the money, we had the opportunity in front of us, and you sat there and lied by omission or simply lied for a year and a half of therapy. So, if for me as a therapist, if somebody had not really been involved with 12 steps, you're doing individual counseling, I would think that there might be and I don't mean to, get in there with what your therapy plans are, but I don't really encourage couples work until both members of the partnership have a really solid start on the process and have people to depend on. Part of it is this, and I'll stop, is that I've been married for 23 years. When something's going on with me in life, I turn to my spouse. I mean, that's what I do. How is it? Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what I'm going through, whatever the issue is. Well, you can't do that now. And he can't do that now. You can't turn to him when you're struggling, when you need support, because you don't trust him and you don't feel safe with him. And you need to grow relationships with other recovering women who can be there for you. And when he's hurting and he's struggling, he can't turn to you, not really, because he's broken your trust and he's let you down and he doesn't have the right to ask you for help. So he has to turn outward to 12-step programs and meetings and support. Turning back toward each other and beginning to lean in on each other again, to me, means a certain level of healing and recovery and trust has been reestablished. And when you say he tells me and just curious about the steps, meaning he hasn't done anything, I just wonder how much you really accomplish in couples work, because to me, there's so much missing from what needs to come first. So that's my answer to the second part. Tammy, do you have I know your
Well, and I
thoughts.
ditto that. My experience is likewise that, doing couples counseling, the coupleship is the client, not either of you. And what you need is very different. Dr. Rob talks all the time, behavioral issues need behavioral treatment, therapy, and partners deserve support, and it's completely different modalities. And so, throwing that in, and unfortunately with couples therapy, particularly if you're not working with somebody who's trained in this specific area, is they're looking at you, the partner, and there's some blame shifting going on often, for you. So that's just a tag on to what Dr. Rob said. So I strongly encourage that you work with a qualified therapist, a betrayal trauma person for the betrayed partner, and a CSAT trained therapist for the person struggling with addiction. And yes, unfortunately, lots of guys, even though it's, we talk about out of the doghouses for men who've been caught cheating, they immediately go to that because then I'm going to fix my relationship. And they haven't done the foundational pieces. So you identified porn, and I put in the chat, Porn Addiction 101 online work group would be a better start. We have this happen a lot, so he's not alone. I'm going to fix the relationship. But guess what? That takes the focus off of doing the work, that he needs to do. Getting a foundation for him, Porn Addiction 101 online group, if it's all online. Sex Addiction 101 starts again March 1st. And that is, they're not 12-step. So again, Scott and I am really priming the pump for the webinar
You
on
are,
Wednesday. But
and that's
but
free.
it's like we get so many questions about this, and there's so much misinformation. So 12-step is free. Why he didn't start this 9 months ago is beyond me, but here's where you are. So, stopping the behavior is just stopping the behavior. That's abstinence. Learning to live life differently. That's what the recovery journey is about. So, like, to me, it's like I'm hanging on by my fingernails, and often, there's other things like gaming, and there's some other problematic behaviors that could be happening, the fantasy. I mean, like, there's lots of other things that would really need to be addressed with a qualified professional. So I put the online work group. I would encourage him to start with Porn Addiction 101 or Sex Addiction 101, and then come back to Out of the Doghouse Part 2 later. And this is not, or it's like, I said earlier, 90 12-step meetings in 90 days. was splitting hairs with somebody earlier today in our drop-in groups. I would kind of count those, but listening to a podcast is not. It has to be connected with other people, and there has to be accountability and doing the steps. Like, that's how all of this stuff changes. So please, both of you, join the webinar on Wednesday. It will also be posted afterwards. But if you have questions about what 12-step is or isn't, we'd invite you to come and ask us, on Wednesday.
And I want to add a little bit more, Tammy, which is so I've written a lot of books, and some of them useful, some not.
No, they're all useful.
Well,
yeah.
trust me.
No,
I can.
they are.
Thank you. One of the most popular book by far is a book I wrote called Out of the Doghouse: A Relationship Saving Guide for Men Caught Cheating. And it is a book for men to understand how to gain empathy for their partner and help their partner understand that they know what they did and they know how much it's hurt the other person. It is for a man to come to terms with having hurt a woman through betrayal and what that means and how to heal it. Every man I work with wants to jump into that. That book, right? And that book turned into a work group because people wanted to take it as a workshop. So we do it as a 6-part workshop, and there's a workbook that goes with it and all of that. Well, I can't tell you how many men are just so eager to read Out of the Doghouse and jump into that workshop because it's all about healing your relationship. It's not about what needs to come first, which is healing me. And so I do find, it's great that he's in the workshop. Maybe he's learning how to say some things that are more compassionate, more kind, more respectful. But that's about you, the relationship. That's about you. What about, has he really learned and understood his own problem? Well, he's not going to a work group that's about addiction, sex addiction 101, porn addiction 101. Those are about him. He's going to the one focused on partnership, and you guys are starting couples therapy. So to me, and I don't know you, this is just throwing stuff out as we do. It may apply to you, may not, but I think both of you are a little misguided. It feels like there's a desire to focus on healing us before at least he has begun to really heal him. I don't know about where you're coming from. So I know this is the hardest thing in the world because everybody wants things to just get better, but there is no around or over or behind, or there's only through. It is the only way, and this is the way you do it. You have to focus on your own issues individually. Yours is grief. Yours is loss. Yours is incredible pain, and getting support for that. And his is maybe not necessarily right at the start, learning how he hurt you. At the start, he needs to learn how to not continue hurting you. So if it were me, and we do these work groups, I'll just say this, because it fills in the part that therapy doesn't give. When in our treatment center in Seeking Integrity, we give lectures every single day. We engage your brains and homework and books, and that doesn't happen in an hour of therapy. There's just no time to get that educational piece. So we give Sex Addiction 101 and Porn Addiction 101 and the Betrayed Partners work group and Out of the Doghouse. We are filling in the gaps of education and information that don't happen in therapy. So just to say it again, your husband has jumped into the workshop and work group and paid for it, which is the one about healing the relationship. And I don't know whether he should do part 2 or not, but that's not the, sorry. Should he continue with part 2 or do the 12 steps is not the right question. He can continue with part 2 or do Sex Addiction 101. He can drop part 2 and do Sex Addiction 101, but it isn't a take the work group or go to the 12-step programs. You can do both of those things. But I just wonder how many men are in here thinking, well, I'll go to that doghouse workshop and then I'll figure out how to get forgiven. And then we can just move on. And boy, is that not the purpose.
It happens all the time. Like, honestly, I get a lot of this where they start with Out of the Doghouse and go, oh, wait, I need to shift. And the good news is some of them figure that out for themselves and shift. So, but okay. So the next one, it's 2. So I'm gonna scroll. So I am not an addict, but I did make some mistakes watching porn a few times over the course of our marriage. My wife is treating this as betrayal trauma, and I'm really struggling to wrap my head around this. Is this normal? And then down, my wife and I are on therapeutic separation, sleeping in separate rooms. The times in recovery when things are getting better between us, sometimes my wife wants sex, and I'm unsure whether it is appropriate to grant the request. So.
Boy, there's a lot there.
I know, and like 2 little short.
And I don't even know questions. Where to start. So, so nobody makes a mistake watching porn. You choose to watch it. And by the way, it's not a mistake to watch porn. It's none of my business. Watch it or don't watch it. The mistake is leaving your wife out of the picture. The mistake is her finding it or discovering it or seeing that you're doing it, would be my guess, because you didn't discuss it with her. You didn't say this is a part of my life. She just found it. And so, yeah, you did betray the relationship, and it is trauma for her because she never knew this was going on. And believe me, every spouse will say, well, if I didn't know about that, what else do I not know about? So, yes, you have, through, let's say, lying by omission, pushed your spouse into a form of not trusting you, feeling traumatized, all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether you're an addict or not, but I certainly do know that you're not trustworthy in the area of sexuality, and that is pretty terrifying for most spouses, for any spouse. Again, you guys could talk about it. I've heard spouses say, I don't care whether you look porn or not. I just wanted to know. Or don't I deserve the respect to be a part of your decision making around sexuality that's going on in my house? So to me, my question is, why did you leave her out? Why did she suddenly see that as this as a betrayal when she should have known about it in the first place? Um, so I don't know. And she too may be reacting to some things that happened in the past. And she's very, very reactive because she's been betrayed and violated before. Or maybe there's some things that you're not really wanting to look at in terms of it being more of a problem than you think it is. And let's see, you're honest there. Well, why don't we do that part, Tammy? Because these are almost separate.
Well, I put the online self-assessment because I'm not an addict. I and you may not be, but I hear that a lot from people who actually score pretty high on an online self-assessment. So I would invite you to take the online self-assessment and figure that out. Then we're in therapeutic separation. Again, like the first question we started with is, what does that mean? Because if you're just sleeping in separate rooms, and you said therapeutic, so therefore I assume there's a therapist, in the midst of this, who has helped you discern, what the parameters are, what the boundaries are, and if part of that is no sex, then it's up to you to say, no, this is part, I'm holding boundaries. And you know what? If um yeah, to me, I'd be like, I think I'd be, I don't know, but I think I'd be more impressed that my husband held the boundary that we agreed to, if that's what we agreed to, then that we had sex, so it could be, this is our boundary, we agreed to this, can you tell me, I'm curious, what is coming up for you, why are you, looking to initiate sex, whatever, you can have the conversation. But here's what it feels like, even with what Dr. Rob said earlier, I was like, there feels like there wasn't communication, like I have a feeling that's the root of all of this issue, is that you weren't communicating that I want to look at porn, or why you want to look at porn, and she discovered it, so it's a betrayal, and now you're in separate rooms. If there's a plan, then like what was the plan? But I have seen, and it's often the partner, that struggles holding the boundaries. I'm not blaming partners, don't get me wrong, but my experience is that I have seen partners, who have, come back, I want to snuggle with you, I want that connection. And it is difficult to be in a house and want support, but just like Dr. Rob said, if there's a problem, then you guys getting help and support from other people and not each other, is often a better fit for the moment. So
I want to just throw one more thing in there, which is, I want to read this again. The times in recovery when things are getting better between us, sometimes my wife wants to have sex. So let me just stop with that part. Spouses struggle with this thing called ambivalent love. If you love me for, if we've loved each other a long time and I hurt you, the love doesn't go away. And so sometimes I might look at you over there doing something and say, oh, they're so sweet, I just love them. And then for some reason I'm reminded of what you did, and I'm thinking, I hate you, I can't believe you ruined my life. So there are times when she feels good about you and she wants to be closer to you. And then there are times when she doesn't feel good about you and she wants to be further away. Neither one is necessarily reflective of reality. It has to do with what she's feeling. And so I think that this is something that needs to be talked about. By the way, you're not granting a request when your partner wants to be sexual with you. I think the question is, this is how I would say it. Sometimes my wife wants sex well, let me answer it. Sometimes my wife wants sex, and what I understand you to be saying, Dr. Rob, is that that's that we need to set some time and talk about that. Not when we're in bed, not when we're ready to go to, but we need to sit down maybe later this evening or tomorrow, and have a conversation about, when things are good, this happens, and when things are bad, that happens, and help me understand. You guys need to talk about this. You can't just knock on someone's door at 9:30 at night and say, come on in. That's not doing the very things that we're here to do. We're here to be more conscious and more present, and to make decisions based on the right set of feelings rather than wanting to run away from our feelings. And in a way, I just think this is a question you really need to be discussing with her, because I know what she's doing. She's feeling close to you and wanting to be closer. She's feeling scared of you and wants to run away. She's doing what every spouse does, which is she's losing her mind. But when she's in a good place and the two of you are being quiet and take a little time, I think you really need to have a conversation about what this means for both of you. And by the way, one more thing. You say, sometimes my wife wants sex and I'm not sure whether it's appropriate. What are you, a school teacher? Appropriate, not appropriate. How about, do you want to be sexual? What does it mean to you? Are you worried it'll this, or are you worried about that? These are things that you two need to talk about. Boy, there's a lot you guys need to talk about it. And that's what therapeutic separation is. It's talking about things when we're not in the middle of it. Let's move, Tammy.
Okay, we're going to run out of time. I know. So I'm typing a few
that is
little
what it
things
is.
for a few people. Yes. So the next one, Dr. Rob, is I'm the betrayed partner. I really want my SA to be accountable for his choices. I don't know what that looks like, though. Suggestions? So I have a really good suggestion. I'm going to see if I can find it. But Debbie McRae did a webinar on the 10 things to identify accountability. Like, it was really, these are the things to look for, and it's actionable things. So I'm going to suggest, I will find that. But Dr. Rob, thoughts on that?
I can't find it, Tammy. Can you give me a timestamp on that
Oh,
question?
this is on the open. It's at 6:08. Are you in the open?
Okay. 6:08. I have
Oh,
5:56 and then
5:08. Yeah.
oh,
No,
okay,
no, no.
thank you. So we're only 6 months up from discovery. Is that what one we're
No,
talking
I'm
about?
the betrayed. No, no, no. In the
Oh,
open. Are you
above
in the
that.
open?
Okay.
I am
Yeah,
the
there's two
betrayed
508s.
partner. I really want my SA to be accountable for his choices. I don't know what that looks like, though. Suggestions?
I'm not sure I mean, every partner wants the person you love and the addict to be accountable for their choices. So there are formal ways that we create accountability in therapy, like disclosure. There are other ways through the 12 steps. So I would want my partner to be accountable, of course, but I don't know if that means you want to know what they're doing or they have done, or they need to check in with you, because you don't want to be this person's parole officer. So I'm not even sure quite what the question is, Tammy. Can you help?
Yeah, I think I really think, and it was like over a half an hour of content, so I won't be able to,
Sure.
but she literally did, and I think it was either 10 or 12 things, and she labeled, she said what they were, and she gave, this is what it would look like. I think that would be the most practical thing for you at this point, where you can sit down and watch it, and then watch it together. This is what I'm looking for, because then it's realistic and it's actionable. Debbie's really good at giving, this is what the action would look like. It's not just, I get this a lot. I want you to have empathy. And I always go, what does that mean for you? Because an addict does not know what that means. And so you have to say, and empathy to me would look like, I want you to be honest. And I want in everything. Well, what does that look like? And I mean, it's like you have to look for actionable things that can be communicated, because otherwise it's just like, oh, I don't even know what that means. But it also sets the expectations for each of you. If this is what you're looking for and your addict is doing those things, then yes, it feels like checking the boxes, but he's checking the boxes. If you're looking for these things and he's not there yet, boy, you can understand that that's going to need more work. And what does he need to do to shore up his program so that he can start to do that? And it's all data. And I know it doesn't feel like data, but if you can look at this is all information. And it's kind of like if you have something wrong, like Dr. Rob says with those expert consultations, one time he said, I'm like a radiologist. I'm reading the x-ray, and like, does this one need a splint? Does this one need a cast? Does this one need surgery? And if you can, take it out of the personal stuff and look at it as, okay, this is really helping and this is not so much. Again, oftentimes getting some input from a qualified professional can help you guide that process. But that's what this is like, this is a process, and there's no magic, like all of this stuff where, in 90 days, the addict's brain is going to fuse all back together. No, No, that's not what happens. So understanding this is a process, and if you are seeing progress on that process, that's a good thing. If things are not, then then there's more work to do, or it's data, and there's a few in here too where he clearly is, he's not willing to do the work. So unfortunately, that's data for you. So
I just want to throw two things in there. One is I really want you as a partner to be going some of the support groups with the other partners, because some of the questions you're asking, the other partners have so many answers for you and so much information for you. And actually more than me and Tammy, they're the people who can really guide you. I really want to answer the next one for sure, Tammy, if that's
okay,
okay.
go for it. I'll
No,
read
you have
it.
to ask.
Yeah. New betrayed partner here. We are only 6 months out from discovery, and he says he's doing the work, but he's only doing his NA recovery and insists that's enough. What does doing the work look like when also substance abuse recovery? Are they different? Are different recovery programs needed?
Yes. Meaning that the problem is the same underneath, but how it is expressed itself is completely different. What makes these 12-step programs work is that you're with your people. You're with people who have the same issues as you, who act them out in the same ways, and they have answers for you. I have been years and years ago, I was out of town for business. I wanted to go to a 12-step meeting. I wanted to go to a sex addiction meeting. I was in some place where they had nothing like that. This was really pretty early on. And I went to an AA meeting. I don't know if I just told you this, Tammy. I went to an AA meeting and I raised my hand and I said, pretty busy meeting. And I said, I really got to talk about some issues related to masturbation. Well, that AA meeting, dead silence. And of course, I knew in that moment that I was the pervert in the room, that I was the creepy guy who had a problem with sex. And it's because I wasn't with my people. I can say also, as much as I respect drugs and alcohol recovery, that there's something incredibly intimate and emotionally personal and deeper on some level when you're talking about your sexual life and relationships. So, is it useful for him to maintain his drug and alcohol recovery? You bet. Without it, there's nothing. But does that need to be his primary focus to the point where he doesn't need to look at sex addiction recovery? No. He has a pimple and he has, I can't say that way. He has cancer and he has diabetes, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't go to the same doctor for both. So I work with a lot of addicts, and those of you who are in substance recovery will relate to this. And I say to them, your chips don't transfer, which means
Mm-hmm.
what you got out of and learned in that other program, good for you. It gives you a head start. But now you got to dive in and start all over again. You've got to start with, I screwed up my life. I don't know what to do. I need help. And it is in a different area. So you have to go to a different place. And I don't like, to me, someone who says, well, I'm going to NA meetings, so aren't I doing enough? They're either hiding from themselves or they're basically trying to shut you up, because somebody who really wants recovery and has been in 12-step substance abuse knows that they're not going to raise their hand. What is it, Tammy? AA is for AA business only or something? Can you help me with that one?
They even say that, like
Right.
honestly, and more groups are getting better about that, but you couldn't even talk about drugs. And I'm like, alcohol is a drug of one form or another. So yes, and even though the 12 steps, if you're doing your 4-step on your searching a fearless moral inventory, you're talking about sex. Guess what? Do you know how many sex addicts I know who have done those 12 steps in AA and apparently completely missed that entire section of their 4-step because they would continue to act out. So I'm with you. It absolutely, you need to get the help for the issue you have, and yes, can they all apply? Can you learn? Yes, but being vulnerable and true in a meeting and sharing your real you do that with people who have the same issue as you.
And I want to add two things to that. Number one, it's not like you can go to meetings online. So it's not like it's like, oh, well, another whole evening I have to go to a church basement. And, you don't have to do that now. He can sit for an hour and a half in a room and go to a meeting. So the idea that he can't do this, I think he absolutely can. And by the way, there's one piece missing from this, which is, would you feel safer as a partner if you saw him taking direct action toward that issue? Because what he wants to do, he's been doing for a long time. Well, I think the party is now in your room. What do you feel safe with? What do you want? Would you feel safer knowing that he is focusing on this specifically? And wouldn't it be his goal for you to want to feel safer rather than for him to just do it the way he wants to do it? So two things. Number one, I don't think you're really being considered here. I think it's more about, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's right for me. But you're the one who's been violated and is in pain. And the other thing is, don't let him tell you it's just not enough time. Because if he had enough time to act out however he did, then he has time to go to an extra meeting. I think he's full of, oh, I can't say, I don't want to say that, Tammy, but I think he's full of it.
Poop.
My dog is full of poop.
Well,
Do
not
they know I got a new
always.
dog? Oh, I can't talk about our
No.
new dog now. But
Well, you can talk
she's
about
really
your new
cute.
dog, but yes, yes.
All right.
So, well,
All
Dr.
right. Well,
Rob,
thank
it's been
you.
delightful. It's great to
Good to
see
see you,
you. And
Tammy.
thanks everybody for the great questions. I threw some stuff out there at the last minute. Hopefully people got it, but you can always email me and I will do my best to help you find the resources you need. So thanks everyone. Bye,
Good to see
Dr.
you,
Rob.
Tammy.